I remember.
I remember.
I remember Private Jonathan Couturier, Loretteville, Quebec.
Private Robert Costel, Gibsons, British Columbia.
Sergeant Shane Skachnik, Wascatinaw, Alberta.
Corporal Stephen Frederick Bouzain, Scarborough, Ontario.
Private Garrett Chidley, Cambridge, Ontario.
Corporal Danny Oliver Fortin, Bécomo, Quebec.
Private Richard Green, Mill Cove, Nova Scotia.
Sergeant Robert Allen Short, Fredericton, New Brunswick.
Corporal Bryce Keller, Regina, Saskatchewan.
Sergeant Mark D. Leger, Lancaster, Ontario.
Corporal Andrew Paul Grenon, Windsor, Ontario.
Master Corporal Timothy Wilson, Grand Prairie, Alberta.
Sapper Brian Collier, Brantford, Ontario.
Bombardier Miles Manson, Victoria, BC.
Corporal Karine Blais, Les Méchants, Quebec.
Private Nathan Smith, Tatamagouche, Nova Scotia.
Warrant Officer Robert Wilson, Keswick, Ontario.
Corporal Keith Morley, Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Master Corporal Jeffrey Welsh, Regina, Saskatchewan.
Corporal Robbie Christopher Bierenfanger, Ottawa, Ontario.
Private Terry John Street, Gatineau, Quebec.
Corporal Jamie Brendan Murphy, Conception Harbour, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Private Mark Andrew Wilson, London, Ontario.
Captain Nicola Goddard, Calgary, Alberta.
Sergeant John Wayne Fott, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario.
Corporal Andrew James Acklenboom, Comox, BC.
Private Alexandre Péloquin, Region of Laurentide, Quebec.
Private Braun Woodfield, Eastern Passage, Nova Scotia.
Corporal Mark McLaren, Peterborough, Ontario.
Chief Warrant Officer Robert Giroir, Oaktouche, New Brunswick.
Corporal David Braun, Raymore, Saskatchewan.
Corporal Robert Mitchell, Owen Sound, Ontario.
Corporal Ainsworth Dyer, Montreal, Quebec.
Sergeant Vaughn Ingram, Burgeo, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Private Blake Williamson, Ottawa, Ontario.
Corporal Francisco Gomez, Edmonton, Alberta.
Private Tyler William Todd, Bright, Ontario.
Master Corporal Colin Basin, Abbotsford, BC.
Corporal Martin Dubé, Quebec City, Quebec.
Master Corporal Paul Davis, Bridgewater, Nova Scotia.
Private Demetrios Deplaros, Scarborough, Ontario.
Corporal Aaron E. Williams, Perth, Andover, New Brunswick.
Corporal Shane Keating, Delmany, Saskatchewan.
Lieutenant William Turner, Toronto, Ontario.
Corporal Jason Patrick Warren, Quebec City, Quebec.
Warrant Officer Richard Francis Nolan, Mount Pearl, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Corporal Albert Storm, Niagara Falls, Ontario.
Private Kevin Dallaire, Calgary, Alberta.
Petty Officer Second Class Douglas Blake, Simcoe, Ontario.
Master Corporal Pat Audet, Montreal, Quebec.
Corporal Christopher Reed, Truro, Nova Scotia.
Private Michael Freeman, Peterborough, Ontario.
Private David Robert Greenslade, St. John, New Brunswick.
Corporal Randy Payne, Gananoque, Ontario.
Bombardier Jérémy Houten, Matane, Quebec.
Corporal Brent Poland, Calamachi, Ontario.
Corporal Brian Pinkson, Corner Brook, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Master Corporal Raymond Arndt, Edson, Alberta.
Private Kevin McKay, Richmond Hill, Ontario.
Captain Jonathan Snyder, Penticton, BC.
Master Corporal Alan Stewart, Newcastle, New Brunswick.
Warrant Officer Frank Mellish, Truro, Nova Scotia.
Warrant Officer Gaetan Roberge, Hanmer, Ontario.
Trooper Patrick John Pentland, Geary, New Brunswick.
Corporal Anthony Boneca, Thunder Bay, Ontario.
Private Simon Longtin, Longueuil, Quebec.
Sergeant Donald Lucas, St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Master Corporal Anthony Klumpenhauer, Listowel, Ontario.
Corporal Cole Barch, Whitecourt, Alberta.
Colonel Jeff Parker, Oakville, Ontario.
Private Brian Good, Ottawa, Ontario.
Sergeant Darcy Tedford, Truro, Nova Scotia.
Corporal Jordan Anderson, Iqaluit, Nunavut.
Corporal Brendan Downey, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Private William Cushley, Port Lambton, Ontario.
Master Warrant Officer Mario Mercier, Estrie, Quebec.
Sergeant Craig Paul Gillum, South Branch, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Corporal Matthew McCulley, Orangeville, Ontario.
Corporal Nathan Hornberg, Calgary, Alberta.
Sapper Stephen John Stock, Campbell River, BC.
Corporal Martin Joilette, Saint-Calixte, Quebec.
Corporal Kevin Megany, Stellarton, Nova Scotia.
Warrant Officer Dennis Brown, St. Catharines, Ontario.
Private Lane Watkins, Clearwater, Manitoba.
Master Corporal Josh Roberts, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Private Mark Anthony Graham, Hamilton, Ontario.
Master Corporal Christian Duchesne, Montreal, Quebec.
Private Kevin Vincent Kennedy, St. Lawrence, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Master Corporal Daryl Jason Pride, Burlington, Ontario.
Trooper Michael Hayakazi, Edmonton, Alberta.
Private Larry Rudd, Brantford, Ontario.
Warrant Officer Hani Massou, Alexandria, Egypt.
Corporal Nicholas Raymond Beauchamp, Saint-Hyacinthe, Quebec.
Trooper Daryl Caswell, Bowmanville, Ontario.
Corporal Michael Starker, Calgary, Alberta.
Lieutenant Andrew Richard Nuttall, Victoria, BC.
Private Sébastien Courcy, Saint-Hyacinthe, Quebec.
Corporal Christopher Stanix, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
Trooper Mark Diab, Mississauga, Ontario.
Private Colin William Wilmot, Fredericton, New Brunswick.
Private Michael Levesque, Rivière Rouge, Quebec.
Private Kevin Vincent Kennedy, St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Captain Matthew Jonathan Daw, Kingston, Ontario.
Private Chadwick Horn, Calgary, Alberta.
Master Corporal Scott Vernelli, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario.
Corporal Christian Bobbitt, Sept-Îles, Quebec.
Captain Jefferson Clifford Francis, Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Corporal James Hayward Arnold, Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Corporal Tyler Crooks, Port Colborne, Ontario.
Gunner Jonathan Dion, Val d'Or, Quebec.
Private Justin Peter Jones, Baie Verte, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Major Raymond Ruckpaul, Hamilton, Ontario.
Sapper Stephen Marshall, Calgary, Alberta.
Corporal Thomas James Hamilton, Truro, Nova Scotia.
Trooper Jack Bouthillier, Hearst, Ontario.
Corporal Michael Segi, Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Corporal Darren James Fitzpatrick, Prince George, BC.
Sapper Mathieu Allard, Val d'Or, Quebec.
Private John Michael Roy Kerwin, Mount Uniacke, Nova Scotia.
Major Michelle Mendez, Wicklow, Ontario.
Private Sean David Greenfield, Pinawa, Manitoba.
Corporal Dustin Wasden, Spiritwood, Saskatchewan.
Private David Byers, Espanola, Ontario.
Corporal Eric Labbé, Rimouski, Quebec.
Corporal Kenneth O'Quinn, Happy Valley, Goose Bay, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Sergeant Jason Boys, Napanee, Ontario.
Sergeant George Mioch, Edmonton, Alberta.
Sergeant Martin Goudreau, Sudbury, Ontario.
Major Yannick Pépin, Victoriaville, Quebec.
Corporal Nicholas Bulger, Buckhorn, Ontario.
Trooper Corey Joseph Hayes, Ripples, New Brunswick.
Sergeant Scott Shipway, Esther Hazy, Saskatchewan.
Corporal Glenn Arnold, McCurrow, Ontario.
Trooper Richard Renaud, Alma, Quebec.
Sergeant Kirk Taylor, Yarmouth, Nova Scotia.
Captain Richard Leary, Brantford, Ontario.
Corporal Zachary McCormick, Edmonton, Alberta.
Master Corporal Crystal Giesbrecht, Wallaceburg, Ontario.
Corporal Patrick Lormont, Chute à Blondeau, Ontario.
Lieutenant Justin Boys, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Private Josh Kluke, Thunder Bay, Ontario.
Corporal Etienne Gontier, Quebec City, Quebec.
Sergeant Sean Allen Eads, Hamilton, Ontario.
Corporal Joshua Baker, Edmonton, Alberta.
Private Andrew Miller, Sudbury, Ontario.
Corporal Jean-François Drouin, Quebec City, Quebec.
Master Corporal Charles-Philippe Michaud, Edmundston, New Brunswick.
Sergeant James Patrick McNeil, Glace Bay, Nova Scotia.